All right, now to improve this test, we need to populate our database with a bunch of genres and then change our expectation or add another expectation to assert that what we have in the body of the response is those genre documents that we have in our database. So to populate our database, we need our genre model. So on the top, let's require it. We have to go 2 levels up, then to the models folder and load the genre module. Now this module exports an object with 2 properties. One is the genre class, the other is the validate function. So we need to use object destructure syntax to get the genre property. Okay, now back to our test function. Here we call genre.collection.insert many. With this method, we can add multiple documents to MongoDB in one go using one command. So we pass an array of genre objects. One object with the name property set to genre 1. And here's the second one. Note that here I'm not using simple values like A or B because here we're testing the entire application stack. So our validation functions will kick in and complain that the name of the genre is less than 3 or 5 characters. So back to genre 2. Now this method returns a promise, so we need to await it. All right, now I'm going to add another expectation to assert that response, that body, that length to be 2. So I'm asserting that we have 2 items in this array. Now this is a little bit generic because even if you return an array of numbers here, this test will pass. So ideally we want to make sure that we have this genre object as well as this genre object in the body of the response. But we're going to come back and fix that in a second. So before going any further, let's save the changes. Back in the terminal, we can see both our tests are passing. Beautiful. However, if we come back here and make a simple change, like adding a comment, save the changes, and then back in the terminal, you can see our test failed. Look at the error message. We expected value to be 2, but received 4. So we expected 2 genres, but we have 4 genres. Because with this implementation, every time this test is executed, we add 2 new genres to our database. So as a best practice, whenever we change the state of our database, we should clean up after. So after we do our assertions, this is where we call genre.remove, pass an empty object as a query object, and this will remove all documents in genres collection. It returns a promise, so we need to await it. However, there is a problem with this implementation. If one of these expectations fail, this code will never be executed. So the proper place to do the cleanup is in after each function. So we cut this here. And here's our after each function. So we close the server and also clean up our database. Also, because we have await here, we need to mark this function as async. Now let's go to MongoDB Compass. You can see in our test database, the genres collection has 4 documents. So let's delete this collection and start over. Now back in the code, let's save the changes and then go back to the terminal. You can see both our tests are passing. So this is what I want you to remember. You should write and execute each test as if it's the only test in the world. There are no other tests. So it should always be executed in a clean state. And if we modify the state, we should always clean up after. Otherwise, our tests will not be repeatable. All right, now back in our test, let's change this expectation and make it more specific. So instead of checking the number of items in the array, we want to make sure that in that array that we have in the body of the response, we have a genre with this name. So we can write an expectation like this: expect response.body This is an array. Arrays have this method sum. Here we pass a predicate or a function which checks for the existence of an object in the array. So G as in genre goes to g.name equals genre 1. By the way, this should be expect. So we expect this to be truthy. Save the changes. Back at the terminal, you can see both tests are passing. Beautiful. Now, let's duplicate this and also make sure that we have genre 2 in the response as well. Save the changes. Look at the terminal. All tests are passing. Beautiful. Now, here's an exercise for you. Let's go to genres.js. In this route file, we have this route to get a single genre. In this route handler, we have 2 execution paths. If we don't have the given genre, we return a 404 error. Otherwise, we return the genre. So go ahead and write 2 integration tests for this endpoint. You will see my solution next.